Welcome to Talking Giants Player Profiles and Projections. I'm your host, Bobby Skinny, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. And today we're looking at a little bit of depth on the New York Giants football team. We're looking at third-round guard Josh Ezeudu and EDGE Jihad Ward, brought over from the Jaguars and the Ravens before that. But we're going to start with Josh Ezeudu. Third-round pick out of UNC, 67th overall pick. Like, this is a pick that really does matter. Like, he has to pan out into something. 6'4", 308 pounds, 34-inch arms. At UNC, started at left tackle, right tackle, left guard, and he would switch spots in game. Justin, Ezeudu has a lot of things to work on, but the reason he was drafted is because he has an athleticism that you can't teach for the offensive line spot, and he's got a natural ability to recover when he does make some mistakes.
Bobby, when the draft was over, I think I would have told you that Wan'Dale Robinson was the most riskiest draft pick. I have now kind of changed my thinking, and I've changed my mind into now saying that Josh Ezeudu was the most riskiest draft choice when you consider that he is a higher draft pick, right? You know, before the third, second round, first round, and the position, interior offensive line, very much a position of need for the Giants. So I am ending this draft process saying that Josh Ezeudu is the riskiest draft pick.
What makes him risky to you?
Number one, the Bills did not have a good track record of developing offensive linemen or picking good offensive linemen. You know, they have maybe an average middle of the road offensive line. And then second of all, Josh Ezeudu is a very raw prospect. He is not very technically sound. He is athletic, and you're going to talk all about it. But we are relying on Bobby Johnson, who does not have the best of track records of forming up these offensive linemen, to hone in on the technique of Josh Ezeudu. That's why I think it's risky.
Yeah, and he's a guy who needs to be on the bench to start the season. Like, there's some issues that he needs to work through, which we'll go through. It showed up in the one preseason game we've watched up to this point. There is things he needs to work on, and they're going to show up more in the NFL until he fixes those, and namely in the hands in the beginning of a snap. But let's talk about why he was drafted is, again, that athleticism. His foot speed is very, very quick. So whether it's mirroring in the pass rush, pass blocking game, in the run game, he's a very flexible athlete who can, get outside and move with the wide zone. You can pull him. You can do a lot of different things with him. He's not lacking in strength, but I do think his core strength is just average, And I think his overall balance is average. So again, at the end of the day, pass blocking wise, quick, rapid feet with great mirror lateral ability for the guard spot. But Justin, what it comes down to in the pass game and in the run game, his hands come in low, and pass pro, and his punch is placed and not violent. Like, he needs to get, those hands a little higher, first of all. And then second of all, it needs to come with some violence. Because we've seen with Josh Ezeudu at UNC and the limited action in the NFL so far, is that the hands come low and they come late. And it allows guys to get into his chest, and you allow really good defensive tackles to get into your chest, and they've won the rep no matter how quick your feet are at that, how good your footwork is after that, And again, footwork is the most important thing for an offensive lineman, but if you let a guy get in your chest plate and control you, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, the thing that I like about him, though, he's, like you said, he's athletic, but active feet. I think just having those active feet and him being an active player, that is my favorite thing about Josh Ezeudu as a player overall, even though he does have a lot of stuff that he needs to work on.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing for an offensive lineman is how it really comes down to your foot speed. That is like the prerequisite for being a really good offensive lineman is your foot speed. Now with the punches though, he does have long 34 inches arms. So if he does, if he does get his hands in there right and on time, he is able to extend and keep guys out of his chest. So like when you do see his hands work well, it's like, okay, like he's won the rep. Like the rep is totally shut down, no matter who he was facing, whether it was against Jermaine Johnson out of FSU or whoever. But if he loses the chest plate, which he does a lot, he can be pushed back before re-anchoring. Like he has again, and I talk about that with his just core strength being average. There's times where he's going to be pushed back in the pocket. He's going to work to re-anchor, but he's going to get pushed back 2, 3, 4 yards, and that can be a real issue.
So how do you go about fixing the hands? Like what if you're Bobby Johnson, what are you telling Josh Ezeudu to do during camp while he's getting these mental reps on the bench? What are you telling him to do? Look out for?
I mean, I don't think it's really that difficult. It's just about practice and getting muscle memory doing it. I mean, it's just, hey, bring your hands from up here by by your nipples instead of down by your stomach, and be aggressive with it. I'd rather you over punch than let guys get into your chest consistently. We don't want you to over punch, but we want to punch, and we want it coming from higher into the breastplate of the defensive lineman, not up into the gut of the defensive lineman, because then they get to take control of your breastplate. So it's really it sounds simple when you talk about it. When you actually have to do it and repeat it and do it against live speed, these freak athletes on the defensive line, it's a totally different thing. So that's always when we talk about what guys need to fix coming out of the draft, it's never as easy as we make it sound. But he seems to be a hard worker, like as a well-liked guy. Obviously overcoming the lisp thing he had. Yeah. Not the lisp thing he had, the lisps he had, and still has a little bit. But again, like it was a major issue for him. So it's just in the pass pro doing that, and obviously just getting more consistent with your feet. Like the foot speed is there, good mirror lateral ability. We saw it in the preseason game where it was like he lost the beginning of the rep, but the foot speed made it not a horrible rep. So. Yep. That's the things in the run game, or in the pass game.
Well, before we get to the pass game, I think him and Shane Lemieux are different. Before we get to the run game, I think him and Shane Lemieux are different players. You mentioned how Ezeudu's arms are long. Lemieux's does not have those long arms. But where would you kind of compare where Josh Ezeudu is at right now in terms of his rookie year in pass pro versus where Shane Lemieux was in his rookie year as a pass pro? One is a third rounder. Shane Lemieux was a fifth rounder.
Well, again, the long arms, that makes a difference. But we've said foot speed 25 times on this podcast, but it comes down to that, where there was times where with the short arms, Lemieux was able to get swam, worked outside in, whereas Ezeudu's not going to get worked like that. There'll be some bad, ugly reps, but he's not going to get worked like that, where he's just like, these are just two god-awful reps or whatever every game, which is what we saw from Shane Lemieux as a rookie. But again, I do think he can learn from the way Shane Lemieux punches and uses his hands, and that comes in the run game too. In the run game, fires out of his stance quickly, but he's way too head heavy, especially in the gap runs. Like he will come out, he'll come out firing, which is nice, but his head will be down, his pads are over his knees, and that's going to lead to NFL D linemen dumping you. And the hands don't come with it. A lot of it comes down to the hands with him. I do think he sustains blocks and uses angles rather than driving through them. Again, he comes off the ball hard, but he's got to be able to, roll the hips and drive through the block. As far as pulling, very smart puller with speed and working angles. When you put him in the wide zone, that's where you see him at his best in the run game, because he is able to flip those hips very quickly. And then with the prerequisite of athleticism that he has. And then when he does get his hands on guys with that arm extension, it leads to nice ability to torque D linemen.
Yeah, I have tight and patient puller, along with the note that UNC, they did weird pulls. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, they did A-gap lead pulls where he'd be the left guard, and so he's in the left A-gap, he would pull through the right A-gap.
Yeah, very weird.
Pin down some stuff like that. And
but you have to be tight. Yeah, you have to keep those pulls tight. If you're going to be pulling and being a lead blocker of the A gap, they have to be tight, and that's what that's what you want to see. And I feel like on the pro level, you don't want to waste too much space, especially as a lineman. You want to get to your spot, because you're a slow guy. Running backs are fast, right? What did I want to ask you? Any other notes? Oh, your banner falling. Any other notes that you have on the running game? Because I just have a general Josh Ezeudu question I want to ask you.
No, go for it.
How do you feel about him, man? We've seen him a little bit in camp. You see him in the preseason. Obviously, you've had a summer to think about it, mull it over. There were I think there was Dylan Parham in the draft that was available, and the Giants took Josh Ezeudu.
I would much rather have Dylan Parham. I'm a big Dylan Parham guy. Obviously, I don't get too crazy into I wanted this guy type of thing, or else I'd be losing my mind that Alec Pierce is having a great camp in Indy. But yeah, I definitely wanted Parham. But again, Ezeudu has what NFL teams are looking for in their guards now is they're looking for that athleticism to work on, and guards sometimes do take a little more time to develop. But you look at the better guards in the NFL, and they all fit that that shuttle time that Zion Johnson had, and it's more about athleticism in the pass blocking game than it is about bruisers in the run game. Like, that's kind of the ways the NFL's trending with the interior offensive line spot.
All right, so Ezeudu's, you said it at the top. He's got to be a guy. He's got to be a dude, and even if it takes him a little time, I'm willing to have that patience.
Yeah, you should have patience with Ezeudu.
I think, and I hope, for Ezeudu's kind of trajectory for his career, I'm hoping he is not put in this Shane Lemieux situation where he does have to play kind of from day one. I think that would put him in a really bad spot to start if he were forced to just go out there and play.
Yeah, I've said this line a lot with him. It's a lot different. Practice is a lot different when you're preparing for your week 2 opponent compared to when you're just trying to make yourself a better player. And I think Ezeudu would benefit from that. So why don't you talk about Bareburger, and then we'll go on the Jihad Ward.
All right, let's talk about Bareburger. They got something for everyone. Yes, even you. They have something for Josh Ezeudu. They have something for Jihad Ward. And guess what? We're going to talk about how Jihad Ward is maybe a little bit slow. He's a little bit sluggish. Well, after you go to Bareburger, you're going to be slow and sluggish walking out of there because you are going to be stuffed and you're going to be full in the best of ways. They're a burger joint, but they're not the type to be bogged down by the labels. Their menu is filled with options for everyone, regardless of dietary preferences. Whether you're 100% vegan or you think ketchup is a vegetable, they won't judge at Bareburger. There's only one dietary restriction you'll be limited to: food that is made to taste great. Bareburger Kitchen Bar, they have the best happy hour in New York City, 12 p.m. to 7 p.m., Monday to Friday. That is a ton of hours to be happy in New York City, the city that never sleeps. Ton of locations in New York City, by the way. They have a lunch special as well. Bareburger Kitchen Bar, 12 p.m. to 4 p.m., Monday to Friday, $14.95, all served with fries. So what I want you to do, click the link in our description to find yourself at your favorite new happy hour spot, burger joint and luncheon, Bareburger Kitchen and Bar. Thanks for sponsoring these PPPs.
That was a great ad read.
Thank you. You weren't there for a single second of it.
Let's talk about Jihad Ward, though. No, it was a great ad read, but again, I'm just so excited to talk about Jihad Ward. All right, Jihad Ward, 6'5", 287 pounds, 28 years old, was brought in on a 1-year, $1.1 million deal, so the vet minimum. Justin, he has experience with the Wink Martindale in Baltimore, but he's been a below-average player for his entire career. Now, I hate saying this, but he does seem to be a leader in the locker room at some point, and I think he can be decent as an interior guy in pass rush reps. But with all that said, I still don't think Ward should be getting major playing time for the Giants. I don't think he should be the third guy in the rotation after Kayvon and Aziz, and we'll go into all the stuff. But just I don't care if you're a leader and Wink Martindale. Okay, at the end of the day, production is what matters.
Yeah, Bobby, we're in the dog days of our PPP summer. We are finally reaching a player where I barely have any notes on him, but at the same time, I kind of feel like I should have some notes on him because Jihad Ward is going to play. Jihad Ward is going to get more snaps this year than what we want. And I think that's just flat out the reality of the situation. When Azeez Ojulari was out with his hamstring injury in camp, Jihad Ward was getting those first team reps across Kayvon Thibodeau. And it wasn't Quincy Roche, O'Shane, or Ellerson Smith. It was Jihad Ward. Jihad Ward has been this A-gap pass rusher. We've seen him be somewhat productive in it. In his past years with Wink Martindale. He's bigger. He's 287 pounds, like you said. So I think that's where he kind of brings value, along with being a good leader, I guess. But besides that, I don't have that many notes on him. But again, he is going to be getting reps, plays, playing time this year.
Well, let's look at his stats. Last year at the Jags, he played 40% of the snaps. 32 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for a loss, and 12 pressures. Not good numbers. The year before with the Ravens, in 10 games, he had 40% of the snaps. 16 tackles, 3 sacks, 4 tackles for a loss, 11 pressures. So for 10 games, the box score stats aren't horrible. And then the year before, he played 55% with the Ravens, 7 tackles. Played 55% of the snaps in 11 games with the Ravens. 7 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for a loss, and 5 pressures. Justin, if he's going to be a part of this rotation, I think 25% of the reps should be where he's at, because he had his best reps working laterally over the guard in third down spots as the third edge on the field at the time. So listen, I'm fine with him playing that role. When it's 3rd and 7, you pit Jihad Ward at 3 tech over the guard, but just getting regular edge reps, I just don't see it.
Yeah. 300 snaps. That's my 300 to 350 snaps, which, you compare that to Leonard Williams on a year in, year out basis. He gets like 850 set snaps, and that's good for about 80% of the defensive snaps. I think Jihad Ward is going to be around there. And he's not going to do much statistically. He's just not going to do much for you.
Well, and he's not just the film tells the story on him, the stats don't. Like, watch him play. Like, I think he's got bad get off from the line of scrimmage, and then on top of that, he doesn't have the power to bull rush tackles or the speed to get around the corner with that bad off. Like, I think his hand usage isn't great, but like, I guess his best thing is he does have good footwork to get lateral or spin at times. And then you're like, okay, well, how's he versus the run? Like, I think he's not a force in the run, but he can set a decent edge and keep contained. But again, I think guys like Quincy Roche can make a difference in a game. I just don't see how much of a difference Jihad Ward's making, except for in that third down, line him up over the guard role. Like, I really just don't see it anywhere else in his game. And I've watched him, with the Ravens. I watched him with the Jaguars, and you just don't see enough there to, I don't think, being, getting reps over Roche, or even, I guess you could put him over Ellison or O'Shane.
Yeah.
But it's just, he's just not going to be a guy who you leave a game from saying, oh, he played well.
Yeah, and he signed the vet minimum for a reason, and this is the reason that he signed it for. So if you want...
Yeah, the contract is fine. It's just, I worry that he's going to be the third edge on the team. I don't think that he should be the third edge on the team.
I think he will be. And if you want any consolation, his pressures since 2018. 2018, he had 5. 2019, he had 6. Big jump up in 2020 to 11, and then 2021 with Jacksonville, 12. So... we're trending upward every single year since 2018. Jihad Ward has trended upwards in terms of his pressures year in and year out. So if this year can be a 13 pressure year from Jihad Ward, it'll be a career best year for him.
I'm looking something up real quick.
Look something up.
So he had, 12 pressures last year?
He had 12, and this is according to Pro Football Reference.
Oh my God, internet work for me.
Oh boy, internet. 7 QB hits. He had 8 QB hits in 2020 with Baltimore. His best year, sack-wise and QB hit-wise, came with Baltimore in 2020. 3
okay,
sacks,
well,
8 QB hits.
The pass rusher who doesn't get the defensive tackle who's supposed to not be a pass rusher. 17 pressures, 16 pressures, 15 pressures in his career. I guess he's playing more snaps, but again, Dexter Lawrence has 11 QB hits, 10 QB hits. You got 9 QB hits as a rookie playing, 60% of the snaps. So again, it is more than Jihad Ward's playing, but again, you're playing that edge spot, and he was playing in an edge spot with Wink Martindale, who allowed you to get after the quarterback. I watched him. I watched him with both the Ravens and the Jaguars, and he just was never. The only time where I'm like, okay, this isn't bad is when he was lined up in the A gap at times, like versus the Chiefs with the Ravens, or last year with the Jags. Like, I watched him versus the Colts, and they lined him up over the guards. Like, he got to move on Galinsky and a move on Quentin Nelson. So, all right, that's a PPP.
Whoa. Jihad Ward's fun. He dances. He has a personality. He was on the ground with his head on the ground doing like
it's called standing on your head.
Standing on your head on the ground during camp, and I took a picture of him, and I thought it was funny. And I think he practices with a hoodie. So there you go. That's Jihad Ward, leader of the edge rushers. And you doubted during the spring that Jihad Ward said, "Oh, why would he do it?" And I said, "Oh, yes, he can." And you doubted me.
I doubt that he's good. That's all I ever doubted.
Leader of the edge rushers.
Ever be worth playing time. But anyways, that's the player profile and projection. And we will see you guys tomorrow with a regular episode. We appreciate you guys. See you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.